So this video is going to go over what is function calling very, very simply. I feel like everybody overcomplicates this topic and it sounds really fancy and complicated, but it's very simple. And I promise you, like if we just go over the definition and an example, you will know exactly what is function calling, when to use it, how it works, etc. Let's get started. The TLDR of function calling is that we're converting a language into code, right? And code is actually a function. And if your background is not technical, a function is just a block of code that has a very specific purpose, right? So that's why it's called function calling, because we're calling a function. But when I heard that the first time, it didn't really make any sense. So if we walk through this example here, I think the whole thing will make more sense and we'll come back to this definition and tie it all back together. So the problem, let's say that we want to build a assistant that actually books calls into our calendar, right? So if I have an assistant and I call and say, could you book a meeting with G tomorrow at 5? The end result we want to see is that in my calendar, I see 5 to 6 p.m. is Jeet meeting, right? So pretty clear input and output here. How do we go about doing this? The answer is obviously function calling, but let's just go step by step. First step is going to be building a function. So at this point, I want to make it clear. We're not in any AI voodoo land here. It's just pure code here. We're building a function so that when it is called, and calling just means running that piece of code, it guarantees, and when I say guarantee, like we know for a fact that it's going to book a meeting in our calendar, right? So, just like how if you wanted to book a meeting in your calendar, you're going to need to know the time, the date, and the meeting name, right? That's a given if you want to book anything into Gcal or Apple Calendar or whatever it is. So we're going to make the assumption that when this function is called, and a function is just input output, right? Just like a system here. So if I give the time, date, and meeting name, then I know for a fact that in my calendar, I'm going to see this thing pop up here, right? Or whatever parameters are given. Parameters are just the inputs to the function here. Step 2 is going to be defining the prompt, right? So now we're going to ALM. So this is just pure code here. Now we're going to the LLM side for a second. We're going to give it the prompt. Your job is to call the following function to book the meeting. Definition, book call, time, date, and meeting name. And some assumptions here for like simplicity if you're wondering. Time is going to be military time to delineate between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. The date's going to be in year, month, date format, and the meeting name is going to be decided by the LLM, right? And we can technically just say it on the phone and it'll get it as well, but that's the assumption that we're going to make here. So at this point, this is the prompt that we're going to give. If you're going to go on ChatGPT, this is the input thing that you're going to give. This is like the system prompt if you're using the API here. Step 3 is going to be sending an input to the LLM. So now we've given it these instructions. Now we need some kind of input data. So this can be in the form of like a chat interface, voice call, any medium where we can get this information that this function needs here. So in our example, it's just like calling. But ultimately what's going to happen is, depending on which method you take it, is when I call and say this thing is going to be transcribed, and that transcription is going to be fed into the LLM, right? So it doesn't matter what medium it is. It could be as simple as like a survey. Like you fill out a survey and it says, what are your preferred times? And it gives you like the date, name, and time that the person wants, and it automatically takes that text into it. My point is the medium doesn't matter. The hard part here is actually converting that complex language part into something a computer can understand. So that's going to be step 4 here. Have the LLM figure out the function input, right? So this is the input of the function, but it's going to be the output of the LLM is going to be the function input. I hope that makes sense here. So just like how ChatGPT gives you like a text response back, in this function calling scenario here, what the response is going to be book call. This is all going to be a string like text data of like 1700. It's going to be tomorrow's date and meeting with Jeet, right? That's it here. That's all it's going to give. And at that point in time, once it gives me this pure text, there's no function, there's no code being executed yet. That is when the AI's job is done, and we go back to the software engineering, like the code part here. So step 5 is going to be, hey guys, real quick, if you're interested in using AI to help your business save time and make more money, my company ApplyGPT helps you do just that. I'm going to put my links down below, and enjoy the video, guys. Executing the function, the compiler, I don't know if that sounds really technical, but that's literally just taking this line of code here and running that in the program, right? Or it could be like calling an API that does this thing. Or running like an internal function. Like it could even be like a Zapier automation. It doesn't really matter. The point I'm trying to make here is that at this point we're like running actual code that's going to execute our initial function, which is this right here. And then when that happens, then our meeting is booked. Like it's guaranteed, right? Because remember we said if this thing has the correct input parameters, it's guaranteed that we're going to get the correct output as well, which is going to be the meeting booked. So that's all there is to it, right? That's as complex as it gets. And tying this back to 2 things. Notice how we're going from natural language into code, right? In this case, the code is actually like the input signature of the function itself, but like when that function is ran, then we run the whole function, and a byproduct of that function is what we see in the calendar. So that's all there is to function calling, right? But maybe some other examples that to kind of get your ideas and mind flowing if you're thinking of how you can actually apply this. Using a similar example, let's say we want to build an assistant that tells us what we have for our day, right? Let's say we wake up and we want someone to tell us, I have this meeting, this meeting, this meeting, I have this event I need to go to, I need to prepare for this thing. You get the idea. So the way you would kind of go about doing that is it's the same thing as this, except instead of booking a meeting, we'll have a separate function that calls Calendly and gives us back all our events for that day, right? And like, so it's gonna be like, if I have 10 events that day, it's gonna give me the events. It's gonna give me like for each event, like the name, the time, maybe like attendees or something like that. But it's gonna give me all that data back. And then once I get like all of that data in JSON, or just think of it like in pure text form, when I just get a line by line item, after that point, it's pretty simple to get an LLM to convert that like bullet point listed JSON formatted input data into just like a conversation like, oh, this morning in 1 hour you have this meeting, in another hour you have this meeting with that person, and then you have to get lunch with this person. Like, you see how this is gonna going. It's all the same problem. So all the agents that you also see online, right, if they're interacting with another interface, they're using function calling. That's all there is to it. So I'm gonna wrap up this video here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, just comment down below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye.